other who's at Bird. So thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us, and we'll just get right into it. So Safa, can you drop us in?
Should I spotlight Scott Stewart?
Oh, Scott, I think you're on twice. Is that, are you on? Can you just talk so we can see if there's a background?
I have no idea how I got on twice.
No, that's okay. We don't hear a background, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there. So I'm going in 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today, our 8th annual Laurentian Bank Conference. We are in our second day, which is very exciting, Diversified Industrials. Today, we now have a panel, which is Building Blocks of Our Communities. I will take a moment to introduce the speakers, and then we will jump right in. Just for everyone in the audience's understanding, my name is Mona Nazir. I am the Diversified Industrials Analyst at Laurentian Bank. We also have Julian on the line who will be helping on the Laurentian Bank side with the Q&A. So if anyone in the audience does have a question, please click on the raised hand icon, and we will get to your questions at the end of our discussion. If you're having any technical difficulties, please just indicate such in the chat. And I just wanted to let you know that we do have slide decks for the companies to the right in the virtual briefcase. If you're not seeing them, maybe just refresh the screen. And lastly, I had put together a ENC presentation, just a backgrounder on Canadian infrastructure, US infrastructure spending, and just different points to be aware of. So if you wanted to click on that, presentation is in the virtual briefcase as well. So without further ado, we have with us today Jean-Louis sorry, I'm gonna mess up your last name, so you should just say it so I don't butcher it.
Okay, I'm Jean-Louis Servranckx, and I'm the
yeah, that's great. So Jean-Louis has over 30 years of experience in the construction industry, primarily in the infrastructure and industrial sectors. He started his career at SPE Batignolles and oversaw East Africa. He has moved up through Vinci through the years, and he was president and CEO of Eiffage Civil Works. He has an engineering background and joined Aecon in 2018 to be the CEO and president. So thank you for being with us today. Secondly, we have Terry McKibbon from Bird Construction. He joined the company in 2017 as COO. He took over as the president and CEO role in 2019. Terry has over 35 years of experience within the construction industry, and some overlap here as he was previously with Aecon. And lastly, but not least at all, Scott Stewart, CEO of IBI Group. He has held the CEO role since 2013, and he's been with the firm since 1983. He has a background in engineering, specifically within the transportation space, and he was integral into the development of their intelligence business unit. So thank you, gentlemen, for providing your time and insight and being with us today. I believe everyone in the audience is pretty familiar with the companies, particularly given the high number of conferences recently. So we'll just jump right in with our discussions. The first question I have for you guys, as leading infrastructure community developers, you guys all reference population growth in Canada as a key demand driver. I'm just wondering if you could speak to how population increases impact the overall demand, and what are other drivers that we can track? If organic growth is coming in ahead of population growth, what is a core driver of this? And maybe, Scott, I'll start with you just to even it out.
Thanks, Mona. The population growth is important for the services that we provide because people need places to live, they need places to work, play, heal, learn, and so on. And we provide design services in all of those areas, as well as technology in a number of them. So people need schools, hospitals, and so on. The population growth is in Canada is particularly important. And I'll just keep it brief in that there's so much immigration that is taking place, and a lot of the immigration that's coming into the country are knowledge workers that are really attracted to the main urban centers like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary. And they're attracted to those centers because of cultural connections, because of job opportunities. And so they really create a very robust demand for a wide array of services that we provide. And we typically see that, of course, then exceeds GDP. One last comment on cities is that typically cities see GDP, or urban areas see GDP growth that is greater than the GDP growth of the country as a whole because of the national migration that is taking place into those environments and the repurposing of those cities that is taking place. And we've seen that dramatically in every urban area in Canada.
Perfect. Jean-Louis, do you have anything to add?
Not really. I mean, as a construction company, we are fine with what Scott said. I mean, the main for us is that something like 500,000 of newcomers arrive in Canada every year. Those people need roads, they need transport, they need power, they need clean water, they need water, and it's all about infrastructure. I would add this pandemic, probably because of the stress it's going to put on the federal and provincial finance, will just be, for us, we are as private initiative, I mean, new ways of financing, like P3, for example. This will also be a driver, I think, for the years to come. There have been so many spending during 12 months that have just arrived that cannot be sorted out by more income. Probably private initiative, finance is going to be key in the future.
Okay, that was a good insight there. Terry, is there any, I don't want to overbeat every question.
No.
And, you know.
So similar comments, to both Scott and Jean-Louis. We work a lot with Scott's firm in communities, so across, social infrastructure and energy solutions, environmental infrastructure. Obviously Canada's growth drives agricultural demand. So we work in the, in the agricultural sector, and it's an exciting sector currently that's evolving. But no, I would certainly emphasize support for comments that Jean-Louis and Scott have made.
Perfect. And then just secondly, just moving into some of your unique diversification and exposure. Jean-Louis, Aecon has a strong concession portfolio. IBI, you have your technology arm, and even Bird has the stacked modular and mass timber, which does provide an angle. I'm just wondering if you could speak to the diversity of these operations, how it provides a unique competitive advantage versus some of your peers. It's just interesting, even on the concession side, majority of international airports are government owned, and privatization in this space is picking up, particularly within the pension funds. On the technology side, we're seeing demand to large companies within the universe stated that they want to increase their exposure on the technology side via M&A and organic focus. So just wondering if you could speak to, these unique positions that you're in and how it's been a differentiator. So Terry, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So for us, certainly technology, you referenced technology, construction right now is in a very dynamic phase where technology is really accelerating the use of technology. And, our modular business is along those lines. It's different, it's disruptive. Architects and engineers have to get used to the framework of building things with modular builds. In that regard, we're seeing growth in our Center for Building Performance, where we're looking at the life cycle of a building and monitoring its performance from that perspective. We're seeing new security requirements that are coming into play, and we do that as part of our business as well. It's something we specialize in Canada. So the technology side is a big focus for us, and it's exciting times for the construction industry.
Okay, Jean-Louis, did you have anything to just discuss on the concession portfolio or any competitive advantages that you feel Aecon has versus the peers?
Yes, maybe what I could add, I mean, at Aecon, we are very much focused on balancing our activities, which make us a very unique animal, I would say, in this industry. You probably know we have two main segments, concession and construction. It means that we can develop projects, finance projects, and also build the projects, which is unique and very, very interesting. In the construction sector, what I'm very keen on is balancing activities between our different businesses. So we work in roads and bridges, which is the bread and butter, of our activities. We work in heavy civil, big dam, big bridges. We work in urban transportation system, like Finch or the REM in Montreal. We also work in nuclear. We work in utility sector and in the industrial sector. And we always try to keep a good balance between 15 and 20% for those 6 sectors, so that we can go through the various cycles easier. I think this is what gives us some strength and resilience in this industry.
Perfect. And Scott, did you want to touch on, the technology or intelligence side or anything else there?
Yes, certainly IBI's been in the quotes intelligence business for over 30 years, and it was always about creating value to the users of the assets that we and others design, and be it our traffic management systems or toll systems. We see, and the pandemic has accelerated this, we see that there's an ever greater need to apply technology seamlessly between the experience of the users of infrastructure that we design, buildings, schools, hospitals, and so on, and the delivery of those services to the end user in their place of residence. And we feel that we're well equipped to truly understand the value proposition because we're so intimately involved in that whole design process. And we know what the key outputs need to be. And by being part of then the continuing life cycle of the buildings that we design, these iconic, fabulous buildings, we see as providing an important continuing revenue stream for IBI, changing our business model because of technology.
Perfect. I had to mute because construction started. Speaking about building communities, there's a big building getting put up next to mine. So, okay. So I just wanted to switch gears a little bit to stimulus spending. And this is illustrated in the E&C industry background or slide deck for those in the audience, which is to the right in your virtual briefcase. And there is a slide on Canadian infrastructure spending and a map of the different projects going up and spend plans. So in Canada, infrastructure stimulus spending, was seemingly slow to roll out at the beginning. But in reality, they've actually spent, I was shocked when I just read the recent numbers, over 80 billion spent out of the 180 billion total since 2016. And within that figure is the 35 billion coming in from the infrastructure bank. I'm just wondering if you could discuss how the stimulus rolls out to impact the business, how long it takes for funds to start to flow through to you guys. What kind of upside could you see from a robust spend plan, from organic growth of maybe the low single digits to what exactly? And I know maybe Jean-Louis, we'll start with you. I know Aecon was one of the companies to discuss explicitly and state that infrastructure spending, you were seeing increased work as a result of that, even in financial results mid 2020.
Yeah, maybe my case is a little different from Terry's or Scott's one, because infrastructure, speaking a lot about shovel-ready project is a joke. You cannot on Friday decide to go away and begin construction on Monday. The lead time in terms of environmental, about rights of way, about public utilities relocation, or it just makes that shovel-ready is rather difficult to get. What is sure is that there has never been, and I've never seen in my life, a pipeline of infrastructure projects where I was. And of course, we like the way that the infrastructure bank is just going more vigorously in the financing of this project. But I would tend to say in infrastructure, the problem is not really money. It's about having good projects. It's about being professional owners and professional construction. Than money. Money is the world. It's not the real
Okay, thank you for that. And now we'll just turn to Scott, and then we'll finish it off with Terry if you both have anything to add on that.
And just a couple of simple comments. The amount of spending on infrastructure that, especially the transport infrastructure that we're very active in, is at an all-time high, with a continuing pipeline of needs and opportunities that we see for the next 10 years. And it's across the country. There has been an absolute recognition that public transport in the form of subway expansions and LRTs is a really important way to go. The process is a very long one, though, between setting up funds to initiate a project and then actually get to the point where you're going through construction, or in our case, even starting design. It's usually a 2-year process of pre-qualifications and design submittals, especially in the P3 world. When we look at the opportunities that are out there, we see still a 2-year sort of procurement process, and then anywhere from a 3 to 5 year execution period. So there's a very long tail on the amount of work that we see out there. If I would have a concern, part of it would be the capacity of, and we may not all agree on this, but I do see capacity constraints about the ability of industry generally to respond to some of the demands that we're seeing.
Okay, thank you. Terry, did you want to add anything on this question?
Just we're a little different, as Jean-Louis referenced. We tend to focus, small to mid-sized projects. A lot of those are, in a smaller footprint. If we're building a building for a client, we work a lot for government and in the educational sector, for example. A recent stimulus program that was launched in 2017, the SIF, the Strategic Innovation Fund. Those types of things we can move a little quicker on. And oftentimes the educational facilities have things, have facilities developed and are getting close to being shovel ready. So we can, in that sense, I think we'll see programs, and we're seeing it already in some of our core markets moving along. And so, certainly feeling good about the post-pandemic, economic demand for our company.
Okay, perfect. And we just had a comment from Adam at Aecon that there is some background noise. So his comment was that if we're not speaking, if all of us could just put our lines on mute to reduce it. So I will do that going forward. I know it's going to be a lot of clicking, but hopefully it'll be a better experience for the audience. So now acquisition activity. I just wanted to turn to M&A. All three of you continue to be on the lookout for potential targets, albeit acquisitions maybe are a little bit smaller, tuck-in, small, medium size in nature going forward. I'm just wondering if you could speak about areas that you are targeting, whether it be vertical, specific geographies. What kind of growth could M&A provide over the next 3 to 5 years? I know it's hard, timing, size, uncertainty about the financials of what you're buying. And under what circumstances do you envision that M&A could potentially become a larger part of the story? I mean, Jean-Louis, a couple of years ago, Aecon had an offer from CCCI, and maybe even Terry, we'll start with you on this question. You had just acquired Stewart Olson at the end of September. So just discuss that M&A component.
Yeah, so Stewart Olson for us was a transformational acquisition, and those don't come along very often. They don't, certainly you don't see that type of opportunity, 100-year-old business like that come along. So for us, and we've made good progress, and we're very excited about the future with that new business. And but for us, we're looking at sort of tuck-in opportunities across, obviously an array of service industries, whether that's in energy with renewable power, obviously lots of activity in those sectors. Our industrial business has got, good diversification now across Canada. So we're looking for tuck-ins that will support, that business, whether that's process pipe, that kind of thing. We've been growing in both Canada and the US and utilities. So things like that are kind of in the, on the radar for us, and expanding our diversity and growing our self-perform, certainly capabilities. think you're on mute, Mona.
You're right. Sorry. Jean-Louis, did you have any comments on M&A?
No, I think Terrance is perfectly right. I mean, we are all looking for transformative operation, but they arrive when they arrive. There's probably going to be in the infrastructure sector some consolidation, as there has been in the engineering sector in the past years. And we are always agile, I mean, to seize any tuck-in opportunities, mainly in the renewable sectors, utility sectors, or very specialized, like what we did in United States end of 2018 with a very specialized welding companies and dismantling company to get ready for the years to come in Canada.
Thank you. I just had a quick follow-up for Jean-Louis, or if anyone ever wants to discuss this, and then Scott, you can take it away. But do you think, just looking, high level, do you think your target is acquisition growth annually to be similar to organic growth, or do you want it to be above organic growth?
Similar for us. That's how we would look at it more.
That's helpful. Scott, I know you did the coal acquisition. You've done a bunch of tuck-ins on the intelligence side. Aspire. Do you want to just talk about, your M&A plans going forward? I know it was on hold for a number of years, but with the balance sheet looking the way it is, it's very possible to see, greater growth via M&A in the next couple of years. So where could that be?
You are correct. We've been on the sideline with respect to M&A for a long time, getting our balance sheet back in order. And we're comfortably in that position right now where we can start to look strategically at acquisitions. We have historically focused on technology to strengthen that part of the firm as part of our pivot to being a technology firm. I would see that continuing. It would be acquiring firms like Aspire or investing in electric vehicle charging platforms where we are also route to market. And we've seen that in the case of Aspire that there's been a tremendous increase in their revenue as a result of joining IBI, but vice versa. We have also experienced a great lift because we now have a different conversation with our traditional clients. On the larger scale, it would be to focus on the utilities, the key areas that are important in urban engagement, water, energy, communications, mobility, but also geographically, and certainly looking to the Sunbelt area of the US, we see some important opportunities for us, especially with the stimulus considerations in the US pending.
Thank you. And I mean, we all talked about your own specific company M&A plans, but there is greater and greater global consolidation. When we look at the bids for projects in Canada, I'm seeing a number of international players showing up on those, Italian, Spanish, US players. You don't need to comment maybe on the potential for your company to get purchased in the long run, but just speak about that, international entrance into the Canadian market and greater consolidation globally. And if any comments around this.
Let me start because we're also a global player as much as Canada is our home base and the foundation to our business. We do operate from India to LA to Mexico to Scotland, and what we're seeing on a global stage is that the world is becoming very small, and we acknowledge that at least in Canada with the larger construction companies coming in, that's a reality. But we also work with many of those companies elsewhere in the world. Just now the way we live, the way we work, it's changed significantly over the last 5 years.
Okay, thank you for that. if there's no other answer for that question, we can just continue to move on. So I just wanted to talk about the shift due to COVID. There's been a lot of impact within the construction sector, operationally for employees, customers, and markets. Projects have been pushed out, delayed. There's been productivity issues. Even on the concession side, you're seeing, air traffic numbers have plummeted. I looked at the recent IATA data, and revenue passenger kilometers were still down 72% globally and 86% internationally. What impact items should investors be cognizant of going forward? And I'm just wondering if you think that COVID has fundamentally changed the business at all, and if so, in what areas, and how could you potentially benefit from that change?
Maybe I begin?
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, yes, COVID has definitely changed the way we operate. Not drastically, I would say. First of all, our workers have just realized that discipline works. I mean, when you follow the rules, you don't get the COVID on our job sites. Most often, I mean, you bring in. Now we are much better after a few months about the rapid testing campaign. When on a job we have a positive case, so we very quickly can trace and isolate, I mean, the ones that can test positive around them. On some of our job, for example, Site C in BC, we just have run through a campaign of vaccination. And so that I do hope we are getting slowly out of it, because our guys are just tired now. I mean, they are tired on the sites, having a hard hat plus hair plugs, plus safety shoes, plus gloves you have to change every 2 hours, plus mask, plus glasses with fog. I mean, it's just incredibly complex. Just imagine entering in a nuclear power plant with all those safety gates where you have to put your hands on your head, I mean, just to be checked. Same thing for our support services working from home. I mean, it's fun to work from home during the first 3 weeks. After, it's not fun anymore. I mean, our people are tired, so the sooner we get out, the better. Changing our way of working, I mean, it will have very good consequences, I think. I mean, one of the good consequences is what we are just experiencing at the moment. I mean, we could have taken our car, travel 1 hour to go to this debate. I mean, discuss during half an hour and another 1 hour of travel. I mean, we just do it. We're all connected at 10:59 and we will be disconnected at 11:46. So this provides efficiency. On our job site, evidently, the social distancing and all those constraints have led to better preparation of the job, better organization of our job, more prefabrication. And all this, I think, is important for the industry.
That was great, very thorough response. And Adam, thank you for the tip. I think with us muting our lines, we can definitely hear Jean-Louis much better. So thank you. Terry, Scott, do you have comments on this? Terry, go ahead.
Similar, I echo Jean-Louis' comments. I think for us, we've seen much higher performance in safety, a marketable difference between our results in 2020 versus 2019. And, I hear that in the industry as well. I think, as Jean-Louis indicated, better planning and better, better overall awareness, and social, distancing of fellow workers, things like that, has worked well. I'd say on the management side, we've all become increasingly paperless, and that's really helped. I think, I'm kind of old school. I wouldn't have thought the productivity from working remotely would be as high as it is, but we're really seeing, high levels of productivity. And I think some degree of remote work will be part of our framework as we move forward with our business, where individuals will have a balance of which will, obviously create a different lifestyle, I think, for our employees. And I think it'll attract a broader array of individuals to our industry, where you have that flexibility of some degree of remote work.
Thank you for that. Scott, did you want to add anything?
A couple of very quick things. we had already taken initiatives long before COVID to be able to work remotely, and we were able to have all of our staff working from home within 10 days of the lockdowns. And we have continued, and it's manifested itself in greater productivity. We used to see about 15% of our work shared with other offices. We now see over 25% shared with other offices. So what that is doing is increasing the balance of utilization and using resources across the firm. So there's a collapse of distance in time that we're seeing because of the technology platforms. Our biggest concern had been clients and others that we work with. I was amazed to see government in particular, how they accelerated what were 5-year technology rollouts into a few weeks. And the impact of that has been profound, and it's going to be permanent. The last thing I would say is that we have done very well in spite of the pandemic. Our revenue grew, our margin grew, and our backlog grew to over 18 months, which from our perspective, that's unheard of for IBI, and that's really well above our peers.
Yeah, no, that's interesting that you bring up the backlog comment, because you guys have, all three of you have strong backlogs throughout COVID. So I just wanted to bring that up. Now just turning to ESG, it has been picking up pace drastically. As you guys know, you're probably tired of talking about it through all the recent conferences, but I'm just wondering if you could speak to your firm's approach to ESG. How has the strategy evolved? How do you expect it to evolve as we're still so early in the life cycle? And I'm just wondering, is it a topic of discussion when you're securing new work? I know safety was mentioned in earlier comments, and that is, part of it. Diversity, cybersecurity, governance, assurances, even in regard to construction is, one of the key things that stakeholders watch for is, bribery and corruption. So any of these factors coming into discussions when you're looking at securing new work. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Terry, do you want to start on this?
Yeah, sure. So for us, as we just released our 2020 sustainability overview with our annual report, and so it's an area that is increasingly important to our business, and as our business evolves with our clients, we've made good progress. In this area, we've had certainly a rich history of relationships with Indigenous communities, and working across different types of sectors. I think Bird's reputation over the past 100 years is very strong in most areas. So for us, we're starting to put more emphasis in some of the measurement areas in terms of tracking emissions of our fleet and measuring waste across our sites, and that's the new piece that's evolving. And so we're planning to release a more comprehensive report at this time next year, with the intent to create a more substantive report that can be measured in terms of global ESG standards. So it's a big focus for us, and most of the core areas of ESG, as you referenced, safety and things like that, we've got well in hand, but moving now into some of the framework. And from a procurement perspective, we're still seeing some of our clients, ESG doesn't necessarily factor into their selection. It's still low price. Obviously, in the qualifications, you often see things like safety now more commonly as a pre-qualification requirement. Oftentimes relations with Indigenous communities is core to qualifying for a certain project. So there's facets of ESG in the procurement side, but not fully at this point, depending on the client.
That's helpful. Scott, why don't we just turn to you and see your response?
I think Terry has hit the high points for us. We've always felt that we've been responsive to energy considerations, the environment, social considerations and needs, as well as proper governance. But we recognize that it's more than just saying you're responsive in all those areas. You have to be able to measure and report on it. And we will certainly see next year a much more robust reporting from IBI on it. The last thing I would say is, along with what Terry had said, is that we are starting to see it become, especially on the social side, a more explicit consideration in how you're evaluated for the selection on projects. Starting, I wouldn't say it's not by any means an overwhelming consideration, but it's starting to gain more traction as a factor in selection.
Thank you. Jean-Louis, do you have anything to add? Or you're okay?
Not that much, maybe to say that, for example, in terms of environment, it's not that much what we build that has changed, but how do we build it? I mean, I was last week visiting one of our pipeline in northern BC. I mean, it's incredible how we have changed our way to build to protect the environment. I mean, this pipeline, which is within forest and beautiful mountains and creeks and small rivers, I mean, on 180 kilometer for our spread, I mean, we more or less cross a river every kilometer with one rule, which is zero erosion, zero sedimentation. You cannot imagine, I mean, the constraints and the way all our teams have adhered to this to make it good. I think that it's quite important. And maybe second point, we would be delighted if our client, like Terry said, could put more emphasis on our innovation in terms of ESG to award the jobs. I mean, definitely in the pre-qualification stage or long-term partnering, they take into account what we can offer. But in terms of awarding, it's desperately still much too much at the lowest price that they still go on awarding the projects. And then we would like that they be a little more of imagination, I mean, in our industry.
No, that's definitely fair and great insight from all of you guys. It was actually mentioned in one of the fireside chats this morning. It was H2O Innovations, and they were saying I was like, how competitive or price sensitive are the customers? And they're dealing with 60% municipalities, and they were like, you don't even want to talk about it. Like, it is so price sensitive. I do think that in time, though, even with some regulatory push, that things should even out. It's, for the overall betterment of society. It isn't just the price point. It is factoring in all of these soft factors that you talked about, Jean-Louis, with the 0% erosion, 0% sedimentation, even in regard to that, pipeline work. So now I just want to see if we have any audience questions. Lunch is after this, so we do have a little bit of extra time, but Julien, do we have anything?
Yeah, we actually have two good questions from the audience.
Okay.
So the first one is for Terry and Jean-Louis. The questions is, we all know that cost overruns are a major risk in construction. So maybe that you could share some color on your procedures on the bidding process, and more precisely, how those procedures have improved over the year, and if there is more room for improvement. Terrance, maybe you can go first.
Sure. So, in our company, it's kind of a little bit like Scott said, when we're working remotely now, there's a lot of collaboration that goes on between various offices. Technology has become an instrumental piece for us as we develop, projects. I would say that as we're, looking at projects today, we're starting to look more closely at building information modeling to our virtual design to kind of look at, the facility as we're evolving and bidding that project and putting that into context. When you've been in the business a long time, you have a lot of history. We go through a series of rigors of evaluation at various levels that eventually reaches my office. And then depending on the size of the project, it is presented to our board. So not dissimilar to, companies and taking on certain levels of project risk, but a lot of it really centers around the historical performance, the technology you can use to access that, the technology you can use to model, a project and get a better sense of the build, and having a very strong team to work collaboratively across different offices to have that evaluation and that all those considerations taken into account.
Okay, thank you for this, Terrance. Maybe Jean-Louis, if you can add something.
Yeah, I think Terry is exactly on. with this answer. What I could add is that the fact that we all have a strong backlog at the moment just allow us to better select our project, to better select our client, to better select our partners, our engineering company, to have the best fit between our capacity, strengths and weaknesses, and where do we put the target. So I think it's a first element to decrease the risk. The second one is to fight against this sort of prototype syndrome in the construction, where you have teams that when you have a problem, just say, yes, but it's a prototype that we are building. It's not really that. And with all the data collection and with all this technology, we much more now can know the trends that can reach to cost erosion, and we can prevent it, I think, much better than before.
Okay, thank you very much for this. Very insightful. We have a second question from the audience. This one is for Scott. How is the technology part of the business complementary to their traditional design business? Do these segments operate separately, or at least can they operate separately? Oh, you're on mute, Scott.
So I was just hoping that you could read lips. We see them as being very complementary. That is the technology sector and our traditional design services in buildings and infrastructure. And we say that because we see that we can bring technology into not only how we do the work, but also in the solutions that we can then provide to our clients. So we're part of that life cycle that I had mentioned earlier. So we just don't do the design and then leave it and then try and find another project, but we're creating value throughout the life. We see the technology platforms, not only from IBI, as being a tremendous tool, especially in partnership with construction companies, to be able to realize that broader objective. So we see there is a very symbiotic relationship. At the right time, and if we get to a certain scale, we will be changing the channels to market so that we do want to use other organizations, either contractors or other architects. So I could see us, and it's part of the broader vision of being able to break out products so that they are more standalone and then go to market on their own, having been proven within the IBI environment. But we're a ways from that at the moment. At the moment, our priority is really to double our recurring revenue, which is fundamentally within the technology practice.
Thank you for that, Scott. Really interesting. So I don't have any more questions from the audience. I don't know, Mona.
Okay.
It's 11:45.
Yeah, I still have time, but we are coming up on our time. So one thing that I wanted to leave, I wanted to give each of you some, a few moments at the end, if you wanted to summarize or, really discuss any key points or leave the audience with key points for your names. I had some, final questions, which I don't know if you want to incorporate or not, but, what do you feel are your competitive advantages, or what is your vision for the company as CEOs, and, whether that be 5 or 10 years, or, so I'll leave it with you guys. Jean-Louis, you want to start?
Yeah, so what are we trying to develop as competitive advantage? I mean, I already told you about balancing our activities. This will allow us to go better within the cycle and the micro cycle of our industry. Definitely, I think it's important for us. Second point on which we are very strong initiative, I mean, at the moment, it's about our professionalism, our quality of execution, our capacity to execute better than anybody else. It's mainly about schedule adherence. I mean, there was a question about cost of materials. I mean, it's not our real issues. I mean, the real issues is that each time we are not perfectly on time in our schedules, we lose money. So we have to, we are working on having all our teams working with the religion of the critical path. Every minute lost on the critical path I mean, has to be recovered because time is money, definitely. And the third point, I mean, arriving in a construction company, I've been trying to focus is that it's a company of engineers. I mean, Aecon, just to tell, I mean, building for building is not exactly what we are looking for. I mean, every engineer is always happy to build a beautiful bridge, a beautiful motorway, but I mean, we need to be profitable. We need to be more profitable. We need to decrease our risk. And when I'm on site, I mean, I always begin speaking about schedule adherence because it's important, relation with our clients, but also money. I mean, how much money are you going to make on this job? What is your cash position? And this has to change in the construction industry. I mean, that's it.
No, that was great. Scott, do you have any final thoughts or anything you wanted to add?
The pandemic has been instructive and really puts a highlight on what we are endeavoring to do. And what we have seen in the pandemic is that the companies that have excelled, that many of us are relying on, are the technology companies. And I won't come. Some of them we can't operate without, and it gives highlight to the need for IBI to make this continue this pivot. Up to 5 years ago, and from our beginning, we were seen and we thought of ourselves as being this tremendous design firm designing iconic buildings, and that would be our standing in the marketplace. Well, we still believe that, but part of our pivot then was to become a technology-driven design firm. The way I see it in the future, it's going to reverse itself. Our objective is to be a design-driven technology company so that we can provide seamless arrangements with and services to contractors and to our clients, but also then to be part of the continuing, if you will, life cycle of the assets that we design. We see that as a fundamental direction that we are going in, which will have then all forms of spin-off benefits to IBI and to the, of course, the shareholders.
Thank you. Terry, do you have final remarks?
Sure. I think, focus on the vision for what we're building with our firm, starting with our, a focus on industry-leading engagement of our employees, very focused in this area. We're building a business that we expect will have well-balanced, diversity, industry-leading technology, a high resiliency in earnings, continue to be highly respected in our industry, and provide a strong annual shareholder return. So those are our core focus areas at Bird.
Thank you guys for joining me. It was a pleasure for two of you, Aecon and Bird, your recent additions to our conference as I just launched on you this year. So thank you for your time. And Scott, it's always such a pleasure to see you. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. For audience members, again, please don't hesitate if you do have follow-ups, and all the information is in the virtual briefcase on the companies to the right. So thank you. If you guys, the three of you, want to just stay back, we'll get Safa to put us back so we're not live anymore, and I'll just say goodbye properly. Thank you, audience. Please, after lunchtime at 12:45, we have an exciting fireside chat with Eric Vachon, the CEO of Stella Jones, and then another panel with SNC Stantec and Russell Metals even after that. So lots more to come from our exciting Diversified Industrials Day, and thank you for attending.